Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the planning board meeting for January 7th, 2025. My name is Carrie Martinek, Chair of the Planning Board. Before we get started, I have a few announcements to read. This open meeting of the Planning Board is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on March 29, 2023. All members of the Planning Board are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The act allows the Planning Board to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Anthony Zaitin?
Here, sorry.
That's okay. Amy Pratsky?
Here.
Bill Pierce?
Here.
Millie Milton?
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Laurie Connors?
Here.
Great. For presenters and applicants listed on the agenda, the chair will invite each speaker or applicant on the agenda by name to make a presentation and speak to their application. Participants will provide their full name and hold until their name is called. Each speaker will be asked to mute their phone or computer when speaking and to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. Those responding will be asked to wait until the floor is yielded to them by the chair. Speakers who wish to respond to comments of others do so through the chair, taking care to identify themselves. Each vote taken by the board will be conducted by a roll call vote. For items of public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comments as follows. By phone, dial *9 to raise your hand and wait to be recognized by the chair. Please note part of your phone number will be visible to those viewing the meeting. By Zoom, click raised hand on the bottom of your screen and wait to be recognized by the chair. The chair will ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their names and addresses only. Once the chair has a list of public commentators, the chair will call on each by name and afford approximately 3 minutes for each. We do not have an executive session tonight. So with that, why don't we get started with our agenda? First on the agenda tonight, we have consideration of the definitive subdivision application for 0200, 220, and 250 Southwest Cutoff. I'd like to read the public hearing notice for the record. In accordance with the provision of section 1024.010 of the Northborough Subdivision Rules and Regulations, the Northborough Planning Board will hold a public hearing on January 7, 2025 at 6 p.m. to consider the definitive subdivision application for 0200, 220, and 250 Southwest Cutoff, map 106, parcels 2, 3, 5, 19, and 20 in the industrial zoning district and groundwater protection overlay district area 3, submitted by Northborough Properties Realty Trust to construct a 2-lot industrial subdivision application. The application and plans are on file at the town clerk's office and planning department and may be viewed on the planning department webpage at town.northborough.mass.us. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on March 29, 2023. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. To participate in the public comment portion of the public hearing, please click on the URL provided in the agenda and posted on the website. And that is that. Submitted December 20th, 2024 and December 27th, 2024. So with that, why don't we get started on the subdivision? And let's see, for the, is it James Almonte? Is that the right person to bring in?
Yes, James.
Okay,
That's
great.
correct. For some reason, I'm only seeing 2 of the names in the waiting room, but it says that there are 6. Is
So
anybody
it looks
else
like the webinar hadn't been started. I'm not sure. Oops. I don't know what's happening there. Oops, James, you're here at least, so that worked.
Yep.
Okay, maybe now it's filling in okay.
Yep,
Does it look better, Lori? Okay.
it does, and it doesn't say the practice session anymore, so I think we're good.
Okay, this is for real now. It's no longer a practice. James, is there anyone else coming in on your team?
Yes, there should be Mike Scott from our office from Land Design Collaborative.
I don't see Mike.
Okay, and Wayne and Kim Kimball potentially.
I don't see them.
All right.
Carrie, we also have Josh and Bob Frederico in the waiting room.
Sure.
I'm getting text messages from Mike saying he can't get in. They're getting error messages. Just shows waiting to start.
Maybe they could try again because it was saying that it was a practice session about 2 minutes ago and now it's not.
Okay. I'll tell him that.
I had some trouble getting in. I had to, when I clicked on the link, it didn't go through. I had to manually put in the meeting number and the other number there.
Okay. All right, so why don't we give them, if they want to try it one more time?
Okay, yeah, I'll tell them to retry.
Okay.
Love autocorrect.
Did you say Michael Scott?
Yes.
Okay, he's in the waiting room now.
Okay.
Okay. I just texted Wayne and Kim.
Okay, would you like to get started, James, or would you like
Yeah,
to?
we might as well. We can get started. If they happen to join, if you could just let them in, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, all right, so I'll keep an eye out, and Lori and anyone else, if you happen to catch it too, then we'll just bring them on in. Okay, great. So, James, if you'd like to talk a little bit about the plan, I know we have some letters from staff as well to address and whatnot, but once you
Sure.
get started.
Okay, will do. Thank you. Again, just for the record, my name is James Almonte. I'm a principal and registered landscape architect with Land Design Collaborative. Again, Mike Scott is also a principal. He's a professional engineer on the project. So if you recall, I'm sure we had submitted a preliminary plan to the board, preliminary subdivision plan to the board back in May of last year. And the sole purpose of the filing is to freeze the prior zoning, I guess, at this point. So this is the next step in the process to file the definitive plan within 7 months of the preliminary. So there is there's no development planned at this point. There's no plans for the construction of the subdivision road. The whole sole purpose is, again, just to strictly freeze the prior zoning. And the reason why is basically the Kimballs just want to keep their options open for potential uses down the road, whether it be industrial or to follow the current zoning. So prior to this filing, we sat down with Lori again to do a pre-submission meeting just to ensure that the submission was complete and we were adhering to all of the regulations. So I don't know if you want me to share my screen. I can kind of go through the plans quickly.
Sure, that'd be great.
Mhm.
Are you able to share? Do you have any
Yep,
trouble?
I think so.
Oh, there you go. You do.
Okay, so I'll just kind of go through these quickly. I know you've seen them before. They're not a whole heck of a lot of changes from the previous plan, but so this is the site. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. It's located on Route 20 on the west side of Route 20. So for orientation, the plan is rotated. So north is to the right, south is to the left, and west is at the top of the page. So this is the property, total of about 58 acres or so. Again, located on the west side of Route 20. There are some undetermined wetlands or unconfirmed wetlands located on the property. One to the northwest and another small one located to the northwest, located in this area here. Frontage on Route 20, and it also abuts the north driveway to Northborough Crossing. So that's kind of an overview of the existing conditions plan. And then we have some 40 scale enlargements of the different areas. So this is the northeast corner of the property. Again, it's an existing gravel mining operation. So the topography is consistent with that type of operation. Lots of stockpile areas, as you would see here. A lot of variations in existing grades, and they're constantly changing daily as they mine their material on site. So that's the northeast corner. This is the southeast corner. Again, Route 20 at the bottom. And then this is the northwest corner, which shows the wetland in that corner. Wegmans and Northborough Crossing is located up in this area at the top of the page. And again, the northeast corner of the site. That's just the existing emission. So as part of the, and just to back up a second, so there is an intermittent stream located in this corner as well. There is no riverfront area, there's no floodplain, and there is no natural heritage or endangered species on the site. The small portion of the site in the northeast corner is in Groundwater Protection Overlay District 3, which is shown here as that dashed line. So as part of the proposed subdivision, we're proposing to create simply just 2 lots off of a subdivision road, which is located in the existing location or the location of the existing site driveway to the mining operation here. As I believe the preliminary plan, we had shown a 300-foot or so length cul-de-sac. So the one change or the couple changes that we did make as part of the definitive filing, we shortened that road to minimize the impervious surface. The current road as proposed is about 185 feet now, so we did shorten that. And then we did reconfigure the lots slightly. Just the previous plan had lot 1, which was a little bit smaller and kind of ran across the frontage of the site. And lot 2 was a much larger lot. So just to kind of equally distribute the land between the 2 lots, we just reconfigured that and made them a little bit more equal in size. So those were basically the 2 changes that we made from the preliminary plan. We shortened the road and we reconfigured the lots to have them be a little bit more equal in size. So this is again an enlargement, 40 scale enlargement of the proposed subdivision road. And then you can see the lot lines between lot 1 and lot 2. So lot 1 now is about, lot 1 is about 24 acres. 97% of that is upland, and it has about 291 feet of frontage on the subdivision road. And then it has several hundred feet of frontage on Route 20 as well. And then lot 2 is about 35.5 acres. 85% of that is upland. It has about 156 feet of frontage on the subdivision road. And I believe about 250 feet of frontage or so on Route 20 as well. So again, we're showing a 50-foot right-of-way with a 28 feet of pavement width and a 60-foot diameter cul-de-sac bulb, with 50 feet of that being paved. There's a 4-foot grass strip and a 5-foot sidewalk on both sides with vertical granite curbing on the edge of pavement. Basically designed in accordance with the Northborough subdivision rules and regulations. So again, as part of the definitive plan, we had to add more detail on grading, drainage, utilities, stormwater. So you'll see that as part of this submission as well. So these are basically just the lotting plans with the bearings and distances shown. And then this is an index sheet of the grading and drainage plan at 100 scale. It's kind of hard to see the detail of what's going on here, but basically a 40 scale enlargement showing the pavement, the property lines, the off grading for the road, and street trees have now been added. Site lighting has been added. Drainage has been added with the stormwater basin shown in the northeast corner, which is the low point of the site, and it's in the location of where they currently are managing their stormwater. So we're trying to take advantage of that. And then again, more details to the plans and profiles, which show more details on the utilities and grading and stormwater. So basically, the road is graded at a 2% slope up from Route 20 with a high point at the center of the cul-de-sac bulb, and then it gradually slopes back down again at 2% to the end of the pavement at the cul-de-sac. So we're showing a water main connection in the road. If I can zoom up on the plan here. So we're showing a water main here with a hydrant located off the side of pavement. I know, as you mentioned, we got comments from the fire department, from DPW, so there are some things we need to address with the plans, and we can go through that if the board would like to do that. But basically, we're showing the utility connections here, all underground, as required by the regulations. So wastewater for sewer, right now we're showing a force main running across along the frontage of the site. There is the pump station on Route 20, which abuts our property, which we're showing. I know we had it, yeah. So we had an inset showing basically a connection to a force main running along the frontage within a sewer easement connecting to the pump station on Route 20. So again, depending on the final user of this site, which is undetermined, the site is conducive to on-site wastewater. So that is another option as opposed to connecting to the municipal system. So kind of hard to determine which direction we would head in depending until we know what the final user is. But we did want to leave that option open for future development if possible. So again, just more details added to the plans, little construction details for erosion control, sidewalks, signage, pavement details, and then the Northborough standards for utility connections and for other items. So essentially that's the proposal. And again, as you mentioned, we did get a number of comments from various town boards or departments over the last week and as recent as yesterday. So we're working on pulling together a written response to those comments and wanted to get any additional comments that the board may have and basically respond to those comments in writing and then follow up with a revised set of plans to address those comments on the plans as well.
Okay, great. So I see, I know Vinny submitted a letter. Josh, did you have a letter as well at this time or any questions?
Yeah, I
at this
did
point?
write a letter, just had a couple of comments, one concerning the water line, drainage calculations, and just as-built plans.
Okay, so
But
James, you have all of those as well. Would the board like any clarification on specific concerns, or did everyone have a chance to read the comments from staff?
The comments, but I thought there were a lot of good comments, so I don't have any additional questions.
All right, sorry, Josh, did I cut you off there? Were you trying to say something else?
Yeah, I didn't make any comments on the sewer system at this time because, like you stated, there is a possibility to have septic systems put in. So I'd like to save those comments for when we get more information on what's going to go in there.
Okay. Okay, Laura, did you have any additional comments or questions?
No, I did submit a comment letter. I did have a number of comments, although there was nothing really, super concerning that I found on the plans. Just request for some additional information, an erosion control plan, some inconsistencies with the regulations that I pointed out, but nothing that I really feel like I need to highlight unless, Jim, if you had any questions about my comments, I'd be happy to clarify.
No, I think they were pretty straightforward and fair and really had no issues with them. We just didn't have time to get everything back to you and to the board prior to the hearing. So I know the stormwater comments we received from Vinny were going to take a little bit more time to respond to. May require some more calculations and things. So we have a little bit of work to do on that. But as far as your comments are concerned, no major concerns on our end.
Okay. Evidently, Vinny's also a fan of the possible name selections, so that's exciting.
Yeah. We
Yeah,
tried to work with the Historic Commission on their recommendations. So, we had, the road name and the tree selection. And actually he pointed out the seed mix too, which that was not intentional. That just typically what we recommend for sites like this, so.
Okay, any other board questions or things that the applicant you'd be looking for next time around?
So this pad or this proposed drive, is that where it's gravel there now still? Or dirt?
It's actually paved for
Oh,
a
wow.
portion into the site. I think like up to the scale house, I believe it's paved.
Okay,
So yeah, it's in that location. It's the same location. We wanted to utilize the same location. There's been truck traffic going in and out of there for decades.
yeah,
So we wanted to utilize that same location.
okay. And you're saying there's no really definitive, any type of plan to do anything other than just submit this and get this in the process?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
The gravel operations will continue as they have been.
Okay.
So.
Okay, I will, this is a public hearing. I will take a break here to address any public comments. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment at this time? Okay, I don't see any public comments at the moment. Yes, I do. Okay, let's see. I have Bob Light, is it?
Mhm.
Bob, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, just your name and address, please.
Yes, this is Bob Light, 48 Emerson Road, and I'm on the chair of the Historic District Commission.
Hi, Bob.
Hi, just for the record, I submitted a letter to Lori today about the street name, and
Oh, yes.
we have no objections. I just wanted to make that for the record. It's actually very, very appropriate because 2025 is the 250th anniversary of the start of the revolution, and Northborough is very proud of our Minutemen that marched to Concord and Cambridge in April of 1775. So, for the record, we approve the name.
Great, thanks for sharing that. That's really cool to know. Thank you. Did everyone on the board get a copy of that letter? I think it came a little later today.
Yeah.
Later in the day? Okay, great. So we do have that on record, Bob, and it will be included with the file as well. So thanks for bringing that up. Any other comments at this time? Okay, I don't see any additional comments. Any additional board or staff questions? Okay, so James, do you feel like you have everything you need to come back around for next time?
Yeah, just a question for the board. Is it okay if we can work directly with Vinny on going through the stormwater comments and addressing those?
Oh,
Or do we
yeah.
have to go through
No,
work through the board?
no, I think that's standard.
Okay. Well, not
Lori,
every
that's pretty-
town. Yeah, not every town does that. So.
Oh, I don't, well, Lori, is that pretty standard with interaction with staff? I don't want to speak for staff.
Yes, yes, absolutely. We'd be happy to work directly with you.
Yeah, thank you. That's much more efficient.
Okay, great. So, anything else you need to clarify before we pick a time to continue?
I don't. Is the board meet twice a month or once a month? I can't recall.
Yep, the first and third Tuesday of the month. So your options would be January, if you're looking for the two nearest ones, we have January 21st and February 4th. If you
Okay.
need longer than that, we could pick further out, but those are the next two.
February 4th would probably be better. I know Mike's on the call. I don't know if the bulk of work is probably going to be in his court. So if that works for him, I know he's texting me. Yeah.
Michael, do you want to vote on that? Does that work for you, February 4th? Oh, he might be muted there.
He gave me the thumbs up. So on February.
Okay, so why don't we vote to continue for February 4th? So is there a motion to continue the consideration of the definitive subdivision application for 0200, 220, and 250 Southwest Cutoff to February 4th at 6 p.m.?
So moved.
All right, second.
Second.
All in favor, Amy? Millie?
Aye.
Anthony?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
And Carrie's an aye. Okay, great. So we'll see you back on February 4th at 6 p.m.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
All right, thanks.
Thanks.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have A&R's lot releases and bonds, but it doesn't look like anything is actually there. So nothing to cover there. Okay, next we have discussion of BWALT, or would I just call that BWALT? I don't know. Trail and support letter. Is it, would I say BWALT or BWALT? What's the, do we know?
I don't know.
I've
I
heard
say
it
be
referred to
well.
as B-wall.
All right. Okay, so why don't we be what we do? All right, so I'm going to invite Don Byrne to join us and talk a little bit about this. The goal here is to just determine if the board would like to submit a letter of support. So why don't I bring him in? Okay. Oops, did we lose him? There he is. Okay, hi Don, welcome. Oops, you're on mute there. Oops, there you go. Can you hear us okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Okay, did you want to share a little bit about this with the board and
Yeah,
open
if you don't
discussion
mind,
first?
I've got a short presentation. I'll share my screen and I'll go to share screen and then bring up my PowerPoint real quick.
Sure, that sounds great. Okay, we can see your screen now.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Don Byrne. I'm a resident of Westboro, and I'm the guy who thought up Boston-Worcester Airline Trail, better known as BWALT. I'm here as a private citizen tonight, trying to get communities interested in looking at possibly building BWALT, or at least exploring whether it's something that makes sense for them. Uh, Basically, BWALT is a trail that is proposed to go from Framingham to Worcester and follow the old Boston-Worcester Airline Electric Railroad that ran down near Route 9, but was on private right-of-way in Southborough, Westboro, Northborough, and Shrewsbury for a large portion of it. The trail will also have two spurs, one of which would go up from Southborough to Marlborough, connecting to the Assabet River Rail Trail, and the one that's probably more interesting to Northborough, which is the spur that goes up through Northborough to Berlin to connect to the Mass Central Rail Trail. The Mass Central Rail Trail, if you don't know about it, is the state's premier trail that they're building that's going to go 108 miles from Boston to Northampton, and they have secured almost 85% of the right of way, and they are rapidly building out the trail. Something like 60% is done, but they're going for the other, or 60 miles is roughly done, and they're going for the rest here shortly. Speaking of Worcester, I was at a meeting in Worcester on Sunday and discovered that the city of Worcester's Department of Planning, or Department of Transportation, actually has as a possible future project to explore extending the Boston-Worcester Airline Trail, because it really ends at the Burns Bridge right in the as you get into Worcester. Now, in Northborough, there were actually two separated segments of the BWALT Trail. The first one is the Route 9 corridor and goes from Walmart to the Shrewsbury town line. And this particular section would connect Northborough Crossing and the Avalon Apartments to Westboro, provide an easy way for people to get to Walmart, get to Northborough Crossing. And Westboro is actively at the moment going to be starting construction within the next year and a half of a section that goes from Walmart, of the trail in Westboro that goes from Walmart down to the MBTA station. So this would actually connect Avalon and that area and the Northborough crossing to the MBTA station. And the other thing is there are a number of apartments in Shrewsbury that I'm trying to interest Shrewsbury in building the trail, and they would provide an easy connection for them. And especially with Shrewsbury's Stop and Shop going away, this would provide probably more traffic again to Northborough Crossing without necessarily having it all have to be in cars. The other section starts at the Old State Hospital on the Westboro-Northborough line and goes around the back of the Cedar Hill, and then gets on the MWRA Wachusett Aqueduct and follows the aqueduct all the way up to the Berlin town line. This has, for Northborough, should be very attractive because it connects your two industrial areas on Bartlett Street and Barefoot Road to a number of areas in town and provides a good base link for other bicycle improvements, since I know your town is interested in expanding, at least according to your master plan, is hoping to expand your bicycle facilities in town. The trail would connect the beach on Lake Chauncey with the two recreational fields you have on your East Main Street. It would provide for Algonquin High School to have a safe routes to school for bicycling to bring to a large number of areas. And it connects a lot of the open space in your town together, which is already being done with the walking trail that is on that corridor. The first thing people ask when you start talking about shared use paths is, how are we going to pay for this? Well, the good news is that Massachusetts, if you structure things right, will pay for most of the cost of the trail. The biggest cost you hear about in other communities, like Framingham recently, or some of the other towns, has been purchasing the railroad right-of-way. You aren't purchasing a railroad right-of-way in this case. Most of it is going to be on a few easements, and on a lot of it's on state-controlled land already. Westboro did a feasibility study using Massive Trails grant and some volunteer labor. At the time, we didn't do the match, but you could actually do it with a match. The 25% design is what's needed by required by Mass to get construction money. And again, Mass Trails funding up to $500,000 with a 20% match by the town if you split the trail into sections. It also means you can do it piecemeal and have more control. Means you aren't going to be spending a lot of money on grants. On design. We're looking at less than $500,000 for ours, which is over 10 miles of trail and a lot of more complexity than what Northborough has. What we've got in Westboro has got an easement donated. And then again, if you do this all with transportation improvement funds, you can both get the construction and the maintenance funding through that program. I throw this up because this is Westboro's slide showing what we did. We actually completed our feasibility study in 2021. The purple section over on the west side of town is the piece of trail that we're about to start building. The section Mark II has a completed 25% design, and we're looking or Westboro is looking in the future to do other sections for design using the same grant process that we have currently. Feasibility study. You basically, this is what it covers. As I say, it's a great value to do it. One, because with a low investment, in this case, I'm offering my time. I wrote the all the text and did most of the calculations for cost and number of users and all the estimates you see listed on this slide. I did those for Westboro as a volunteer. And if we set this up right, I will volunteer my funds, my money, and time, and basically a local engineering firm that I worked with, Waterman Design, has said if they are doing it, they would quote list me as an employee, but my salary would be contributed. And Mass Trails has already agreed that that is valid, and so there'd be no monetary cost to Northborough to do such a feasibility study.
Wow.
For the easements, Northborough is actually blessed. There's 7 agreements total you need with landowners. Compare that to any other town except on Bewalt, except Marlborough and Framingham, both of which have to deal with a railroad company, so they have bigger problems. And that's very few easements. Westboro's got the record. We have 36 easements in town to build the whole trail. And we're moving along well with getting those easements. And we've talked to most of the commercial landowners in town that we need to cross their property. And they're all seem to be willing and friendly to work with us. That would be 3 easements along the Route 9 corridor, plus the agreement with MassDOT, because you're using the MassDOT driveway to get down there. And there's 1 easement near up by on Barefoot Road, so you can use the railroad crossing on Barefoot and not have to worry about doing something special to cross the tracks. And otherwise, your easements are fairly simple. So basically, where are we? One, I am trying to work to convince MWRA to allow the trail on the Wachusett Aqueduct. Actually, not only the Wachusett Aqueduct, but I'm working with some other trail efforts. Part of the reason I'm leading this is I have actually dealt with MWRA before. I'm the guy who got the trail through the filtration plant in Northborough, Marlborough, up there in the corner. And it took a number of years, but I was able to break down MWRA and get this. And since then, I've been trying to work to get the aqueducts opened up. I worked with the late Representative Chris Walsh, and he put together the agreement that has given you the hiking trail. And Chris was of the belief, and I was of the belief at the time, that agreement should have allowed you to build a shared use path. I understand MWRA is pushing back a little, but I'm willing to try to go forward, and right now doing research, because I can, among other things, I can show that the city of New York actually has on part of their aqueduct and on the water supply next to it, like the equivalent of Quabbin, for 1/3 of the total water supply for New York is provided, has a rail trail on it. I'd like to encourage you to explore doing the Mass Trails grant if we can get MWRA going, so that maybe in 2026 file for a grant. And again, as I say, I offer to do the labor, a lot of the writing, and therefore provide them matching money without the town having to spend any money on this. And I'd like you to consider sending a letter to the Westboro Select Board and the Westboro Planning Board indicating that Northborough is still interested in the trail. And finally, if you want to learn more about BWALD, Westboro has Town of Westboro has a page with all the documents that we have that we've been doing over the years since we started this in 2012. That's it. And if I'll be happy, I've given Amy most of this. I will give her the latest version of this, and she can distribute it to anyone who wishes a hard copy of the slides. And I'm open for questions.
Okay, great. Thanks for your presentation. Board members, any questions, comments?
Yeah, so we will get a copy of these slides. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Great, great.
Complete with speaker notes even. They may not be exactly what I said, but at least they'll give you the same general sense. So
Great.
Okay, Bill, you got a question there?
Yeah, so I know, and I have always been a fan of this trail, and so thank you for all the hard work you've put into this. I know back, I think 3 or 4 years ago, we were looking at doing this, and we got hung up on the aqueduct, right? We did a feasibility study, and we wanted to continue the trail over the top of the aqueduct, like it was when the aqueduct was first built in the late 19th century. But we ran into a bunch of problems. Is the intent here still to go over the top of the aqueduct, or are you going to look to try to sort of go around it?
you're referring to the Aqueduct Bridge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I believe you folks are still pursuing that and going over the Aqueduct Bridge. And if the Aqueduct Bridge is available, we'd love to go over it. Otherwise, we would look at a on-road solution to get around that problem. That's part of what the feasibility study would do, is it would offer options so that if you run into challenges like the bridge, there's an option on, okay, here's another approach you could do it with.
Laura, you have a question as well?
I just wanted to provide an update. So I'm happy to report that after a year and a half, approximately, delay, we finally got the changes to the 8M permit from MWRA, as well as we needed an additional 8M permit from them. And we needed Mass Historic approval to really advance the preliminary design. So they needed access to the bridge tunnel in order to really proceed with the existing conditions survey. So that has finally come through. They haven't actually accessed it yet. But at least the big logjam that we had with MWRA has finally been resolved. So now Stantec is our consulting engineer. They are moving forward with their work. So hopefully we will actually get a preliminary design out of this. I believe we signed the contract like 2.5 years ago. So it has, that's one of the concerns that I have with the BWALT is the significant challenge that we had just to get access to the bridge leads me to believe that they had previously told us that they were unwilling to allow surfacing on the aqueduct. So Don, do you have any updates? Have they been willing to reconsider that at all?
We haven't really approached them. I didn't approach them because I knew you folks were working on the bridge, and the last thing I wanted to do was add confusion to the process. But there are a number of the communities further in that have small portions where they need to go on an existing aqueduct or operational aqueduct. I can tell you from having spent 15 years negotiating with MWRA on various things, that I find that there's actually two parts to MWRA. There's the MWRA Parks and Recreation Division that would love to open up all their aqueducts and all their land. And then there is the MWRA, I call it mass criminal incarceration group, or, or the MCI prisons almost, because the attitude is they should be putting up barbed wire and holding it. What you have to do is find the balance and find somebody in the parks and recreation side who will help lead you or help support you, and then get legislators and other people going. Now, I know there is interest with the Legislative Trails Caucus, which is a group of about 40 legislators in the state House, on making sure the aqueducts are a possible use for trails. So what I'm trying to do is build up at the moment a list of all the places in the country where other people are building trails on water supply aqueducts, and then say, hey, wait a minute, if they can do it, why can't we? And start with that.
Yeah,
And I
so
have
I
about a
think,
dozen right now. I actually have about a dozen different places that they're building them along open channels right next to it, or building it on top of the pipe, or other things. So it's not across the country. So it's not just a single case or that we're unique. There is a good argument.
Well, and I would even say that, we just, a couple months ago, we just approved a project where they're building an entire road for semi trucks to go over the aqueduct. So, but I think the other concern there too was either some Verizon or some electrical lines that were up in that area. So, like I said, I love this project. I really want to move forward with this, and I think we should. We need to make sure that we can be realistic in our expectations here.
Right. And that's why I'm not suggesting anything until we can get MWRA at least to move a little, but I'll look for your help, especially now that you have your bridge situation. I am
Amy, did
looking
you-
for help to support this.
Okay, Amy, did you have something there?
Yeah, just a quick small thing is back to Bill's comment is Ashley and I were bringing a CBC application forward with Don's help to CBC in 2021, but we didn't. So the feasibility study hasn't been done yet because we heard of the MWRA pushback. But I think, with the master plan, it says we want to expand our bike trails. I still think the two things that can come out of tonight, I would love to support a letter to Don from the planning board to support him, because Westboro wants to know if Northborough is open to still looking at the ideas. And I think even the Westboro B-Walt on Route 9, if that could be done, that's not on the aqueduct, I think that would be helpful, because like you said, it connects Avalon to the MBTA and to Walmart. And I know some nights I go down Route 9 and there are people walking down Route 9. So if there was a safe place for them to be able to walk or ride a bike, I think that would be great. But I think for him to move forward in Westboro, they want to hear that Northborough, one day or would be open to this, whether it's now or the future. But I did write a draft letter that I would share with the board. But the second thing I wanted to do is get support to bring forward the feasibility study, whether it's this year at the CPC, which isn't until November, if we could work on the trails. Because Carrie Salwa also said during our economic development forum how important the trails are. And she also told me when I met with her that she is working at the state level to try to get MWRA to open it up as a trail. So I'd love to connect on. And Carrie, I don't know if you guys have ever talked, but I know she's trying to get this opened up and we can see what can happen. But I think tonight, I think this does fit in with our master plan goals, and I think it would be great to give a letter to the Westboro, just saying that Northborough, you know, is open to bike trails and that we support it.
How does the board feel about that in terms of writing a letter? I guess I haven't seen it, Amy, but if you're able to share that at some
I could
point.
share it.
Mm-hmm.
Dawn, do you mind stopping sharing your screen?
No problem. Just give me a second here to get out of where I am. And okay.
I actually don't have a share screen button unless it's under more. Never mind. Okay. Let's see. This is just a basic letter. We could make changes to it. Oops, I have changes. This is the one I was here, I can share my updated one. I'm gonna share. I was making some changes. Let's see. Just want to open the final draft. Sorry. Just want to. It's coming. Then open. For some reason, every time I click on it, it's not opening. So I'll share the one.
It's fine if it has the edits on it.
Yeah. Okay, let me, sorry. Yeah, I'm usually quicker at this.
Mhm.
I don't know why the one without the edits won't open, but. So this is the basic, but I figured we could make questions to it too. I mean, changes if we had to. Does anybody have any changes, or is everybody in agreement to send a letter to Westboro?
Thoughts on the letter of support?
I mean, like I said before, I'm all for the entire trail, so I would be fine with it. The only thing I would suggest, Amy, is maybe that second to last paragraph. I don't want to limit us to them thinking that we're only going to do that part.
Great.
Right.
So we can make those changes. What would you like to?
I just think that, we keep it to the B-Walt Trail project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can just say this trail will have a positive impact on residents who would like to safely
Right.
walk, bike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Millie or Anthony, any?
Love it.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
I'm definitely in favor of it.
Okay. And
What
maybe later on in the year, I might ask for support to do the feasibility study. I don't know if we want to talk about that tonight or later on, but it doesn't sound like there's a lot of cost to Northborough to go ahead with the feasibility study. And we don't need the MWRA, right, Don, to do the Route 9 part?
The Route 9 part, you wouldn't need MWRA. We would at least probably we're going to need data from MWRA at least for the other piece, just so, we can be more intelligent. I mean, we could write one without it, but you're not getting the quality of a study that I feel is good or desirable.
Okay.
I do suggest to people that if they want, take a look at the link that I put in my slide. That, as I say, I will get Amy the new slides. the latest version of the slides. We do have the Westboro feasibility study online, and while as the author, I immediately, the moment I put something out, I go, I could do better. I do think it provides a lot of the answers to a lot of the questions people would be looking for, and so you can use that as a basis to start thinking of, is this what we want, or what other things do we want in a feasibility study?
Okay,
So,
well, why don't we, since this is the first time the board's really looking at it all, why don't we start with the support letter, and then if the board has a chance to look at some of those materials and determine what that looks like in terms of feasibility. Laurie, have you already seen these materials?
I have seen some, but not everything. This is the first time I'm seeing this letter.
Okay, so why don't we all take, start with the support, there's a general support here, and then come back around after everyone has a chance to review the materials, and then talk about what that looks like for next steps.
So
Sound good?
Lori, if I forward it to you, can you put it on town letterhead and then send it to the Westboro Select Board and Planning Board?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, great.
Is that how we should do it, Don? Just send it right to the Planning Board and Select
Yeah.
Board?
yes, please do that. We are actually having a meeting a week from Thursday on the 16th about what we're doing in Westboro. Number of people have asked questions, so we're having a public meeting if anyone is interested in attending.
Okay, and where is that?
It's going to be January 16th at 6 p.m. in the Forbes Municipal Building, Great Hall. Basically, the police station, and go up the stairs by the police station. You'll be right there where the meeting is.
Okay.
Up
Very
one
great.
floor.
Don,
Well,
what
we'll
is
get
the
it out.
name of your group?
What?
Do you have a volunteer committee that's coordinating this?
It's basically, I have not really got any formal. I've got a number of people who are interested in helping. But I'm trying to collect, before I have a group, I want to really try to find representatives from individual towns. I'm working with Shrewsbury, and they're also looking at the idea of a feasibility study. I'm talking to some folks in Berlin. They're a little tied up because they're in the middle of the Mass Central Rail Trail, and the state is pushing them actively on that. I'm working with the Trails Committee in Southborough on this. I'm working with the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee in Framingham on this. I'm trying to get people to see if we can come up with some, get some people who are interested in creating an informal or formal group representing the towns. And I will probably be trying to do a road show with our Westboro's assistant town planner to talk about what we're doing and see if we want to try to go more formal with, also I work with CMRPC to get that going.
Okay, well, sounds great. Thanks so much for your presentation and for joining us this evening, and really appreciate all your work.
And Amy knows how to reach me, and feel free if anyone has questions to send me an email, and I'll be happy to try to respond.
Okay, that's great. Thanks so much. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks. Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's great. Next on our agenda is we have discussion of bylaws for annual town meeting. So Lori, you sent over, let's see, I think I have the most recent. Oh, great, you're sharing, so I don't have to bother. Great. Okay.
Yes.
Why don't we get back to our bylaws and get that moving? And then when do we have to have a public hearing, Lori, before we get started here?
I think we really need to aim for our second meeting in February,
Okay.
because
then for
typically
public-
they like the articles by the middle of March.
Okay, so do we have to, so I guess we have time to announce that then. We have to do our public hearing notice and whatnot, and we'll get that. Okay, great.
Right.
Okay, so let's take it from the top.
Yes. So just a little bit of background information. Amy and I sat down this afternoon. We spent a couple of hours going through her suggested changes to the accessory dwelling bylaw, which I had updated to include Bob's comments that he sent along, I believe in December. And then we also looked over the inclusionary zoning bylaw. I did have time to incorporate our discussion in these articles. However, I did not in the inclusionary zoning bylaw. So I thought that we could just set that aside for the next meeting. So Amy and I can just work together to make sure that we're on the same page, and hopefully Bob can join in on that conversation as well before we present it to you folks, hopefully at the next meeting. So I just didn't want to waste your time with all of our back and forth.
Okay,
so
our board members, is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
All right. Thank
Okay.
you. I appreciate your time put into it.
So then when it comes to the accessory dwelling bylaw, the state did release their guidance a few weeks ago, which is great. It's still not definitive, however. They are asking for feedback from communities on their guidance document. So they do have certain definitions that they wanted us to use. However, some of the definitions Amy and I discussed, we aren't totally on board with how they are defining things. So a couple of them I include here. These ones I thought, we thought made more sense, whereas some of the other definitions we left off at this point because we think that they will probably change. Or possibly we may just want to stick with our own definition because our definition is better.
So clarification, Laurie, that's exactly what I was going to ask. We're not obligated to go by what they're just providing guidance, general guidance, and we're not obligated to do every single, every dot every I and cross every T the same way.
Correct. So there are some things that are musts, and then there are some things that are guides.
Okay.
So like I said, it's still kind of in flux at this point. But I guess we could just start off with the definition of dwelling. So you can see our definition is showing up here as being struck out. And then this is their definition: a single housing unit providing complete independent living facilities for one or more persons, including permanent provisions for living, sleeping, eating, cooking, and sanitation. So see also section 7-05-020 is obviously part of our definition today, and I recommend that we keep. Bob, did you have any issues with this new definition for dwelling?
Hang on just a second. I sent an email to you, Lori, looking at some of this stuff. Okay, on the definition of dwelling, I did not have an issue. Just to let everybody know, there is, if you go on to the state website, there is a open hearing or listening period that ends on the 10th at midnight. And anybody can go on and write up whatever they want to say. Okay. I also spent at the beginning of December and then again this morning in a meeting with 50 or 60 other building officials and zoning enforcement officials going over this stuff. Like Laurie said, it's still in flux. Some of it we do need to take literally, and some of it, we do have some ability to be a little bit flexible. If you folks are familiar with the Dover Amendment, this whole situation with the ADUs is going to follow the same trajectory. The state's going to give us the law, and they're going to give us some guidelines. And then for the next 30, 40, or 50 years, the courts are going to decide what this actually really looks like. So one of the things that's important to do is be as complete as possible up front with all of your requirements, get them codified into the zoning book, and get the AG to approve it. Okay, because otherwise it's going to be a mess. Okay, we all know what the Dover Amendment has done to us. I mean, there's a lot of good about it, but there's a lot of stuff that we are just completely out of the loop on, for enforcement or anything like that. This is going to go down on the same road. And this is the exact same way the Dover Amendment rolled out. So if we're not careful, this could come back and bite us in the butt. I only had 2 or 3 comments. This particular definition for dwelling, I don't have an issue with. Thanks.
Does anybody have any feedback on this new definition of dwelling?
No, any board members? And so what, I mean, just out of curiosity, is this something you saw in other bylaws and makes sense, or you just thought we made this up, or just wondering the source?
It's word
Definition.
for word. It's
Oh,
word
it's
for word
theirs.
coming out of the guidance document from the state.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
And then the same is true for the definition of lot.
Thing with dwelling, do we want to call it a dwelling unit? I noticed this, like, in our bylaw, we say dwelling, but they said dwelling unit. Like, is that picking hairs, or should we have it called the dwelling unit? Or just a dwelling?
I think if you do dwelling unit, then you're gonna have to remove dwelling and add dwelling unit, right? And who knows where else in the code that name might be.
Yeah, I think in many locations in our zoning bylaw, we do say dwelling unit, but I don't know if it's everywhere.
I think in the definition, because you have dwelling as the heading for the word to be defined, and then it goes on to say a single housing unit, you could probably say that is in effect, if you do the math, it's a dwelling unit.
So it's fine the way it is.
Yeah, I don't see the big difference.
Yep, okay.
Where I did see a thing that should be cautious of is when you get to the definition of lot. The state says it's an area of land with definite boundaries that is used or available for use as a site of a building or buildings. You can have a lot that is not buildable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There are lots in town that may have enough building area and enough frontage, but by the time you put a septic system in there, the foundation and a well and wetlands, that lot is no longer buildable. So I think this particular definition may give people the false sense of security that anything that has definite boundaries is a buildable lot.
So, so this is the word for word definition that's coming out of the state guidance. Are you
Yeah,
suggesting that we just stick with our old definition instead?
The one thing I've learned about this whole ADU thing is the state is not made up of experts.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not pretending to be one either, but you go to these meetings where there are 50 building inspectors who have been in this for 100 years, and they're picking this stuff apart because they can see the court cases coming.
I kind of lean, I think Bob's right. I kind of lean towards keeping to the original. I feel like we've even used a continuous parcel of land in some of our logic. So I don't even like taking out continuous parcel of land. Bob made an additional point about being buildable or not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Any thoughts on that from the board? Yeah.
I agree with
I think
that.
it's fine to leave it, yeah.
Okay. I'll just delete that one then. So then the next one, we went back and forth about this quite a bit. And of course, the guidance says that you can allow site plan approval. However, if you don't do site plan approval on single family homes, then you really are very limited as to what you can do for accessory dwellings, which was interesting because it kind of contradicts itself.
Mhm.
They're allowing you to do site plan review, but then they're telling you that if you don't do site plan review on single family homes, you can't do site plan review. So the compromise position that Amy and I came up with, and I spoke to Bob about this as well, is that instead of doing site plan review with the planning board, so right now, there is no site plan review by the planning board for accessory dwellings. It's just approved by Bob. But what we could do is we could say, if it's a detached accessory dwelling unit, then that would go through site plan review with the development review team. So that consists of all the development related department heads. So it has Bob. Bob is leading the show. We have the fire chief, we have the police chief, we have DPW, we have me, we have conservation agent. So we have all of the key folks represented. So is that something that folks would feel comfortable with? So this modification, the next article, all it says is that if it's a detached accessory dwelling unit, it would go through, actually, I see a typo. Instead of 20, it should say 2 parentheses. So
I think process-wise, I'm not opposed. I wonder if volume-wise, is this, like, do we anticipate a large volume of ADUs? Like, all of a sudden, you're gonna have 20 of these meetings in a quarter, or we don't really anticipate, or we have no idea, period?
I've had, since this was announced, I've had probably 4 or 5 people come to me looking to do ADUs. And what I've been telling them to avoid confusion is wait to at least February 2nd. Because once February 2nd comes in, what we currently have in our zoning for accessory dwelling units is basically put aside and the state comes in. I also understand that once we get to town meeting, we have the opportunity to bring in our own spin on the ADU requirements. And I think that's a wise idea. So I have had interest. People are willing to be patient because I've been explaining that the guidelines are still coming out to us, so we really don't know what we need how this thing needs to flesh out. So we do have interest. It's not a landslide in terms of how much work is coming up.
Okay.
If we get to the point where we're having multiples, we could certainly, once we convene the team, as I say, once we convene the team, we can have more than one applicant come
That's
up to
true.
us, and we can spend maybe a 2-hour slug of time and work through 2 or maybe 3 applications if necessary. I don't think that's going to be a problem for workload. I do have one question or comment. If you look at the applicability and the last line, where it says included construction or installation of a detached accessory dwelling unit. Is that a detached standalone dwelling unit, or is it a detached addition to an accessory structure that's already in the yard?
it's just a detached accessory dwelling unit. So if you already had a 2-car garage,
Yeah,
and you are building an accessory dwelling attached to that 2-car garage,
okay,
then that would not need to go through site plan review. If, however, you are building a 2-car garage with an accessory dwelling attached to it, so it's a whole new structure, the 2-car garage is new, and the accessory structure addition is new, then it would have to go through site plan review.
Okay, so basically, I just want to understand this to be clear. So if you have if you have an existing two-car garage that is detached and you want to build an ADU onto it, site plan review is not required?
Correct.
Wow.
So it would be the same circumstance as today.
Right,
Today, that's what you're approving by yourself.
right,
However, if it's a brand new, like I said, two-car garage with an accessory dwelling on top,
yeah,
or it's a barn, a brand new barn with an accessory dwelling that's part of it, then that would require a site plan review.
all right. Okay, I would just need to be clear about which direction to send people when they came to me on that. I just wanted some clarification. Thank you.
Does that make sense to you? Is that the way you think works the best?
I think it's six of one, half dozen of the other. I'm kind of on the fence about it. You know, if it's a standalone out in the backyard, that's one thing, but if you're basically building an addition onto an existing accessory structure, you know, does it need to have an extra set of eyes on it before they build? I'm not sure. I think that's up to the board to decide. Like I said, I just wanted to have some clarity on that. That's all.
Okay, any board questions on this one? Does that process sound right to the board?
If they have a detached one and they wanted to put something, change any of the rules or regulations, would it help them to attach it to the house and then build the accessory unit? Is there any workarounds on that?
Well,
That's
if you had a primary home and you wanted to have your accessory dwelling unit as part of the original home, all it would really take is a building permit without any type of site plan review or design review or anything like that.
Right,
You know, then again, you know, they're talking about, you know, back to Lori's point, the state says, well, we don't need, you know, a site plan review or anything like that for a single family home. Why do we need it for an accessory structure in the backyard?
right.
It's, I think that's one of those gray areas that, you know, and I really don't have an opinion one way or another. I'm just looking for clarity so that when this does hit the books, I know what we need to do.
Yeah, and that's just what I'm trying to think about is what would be some of the workarounds that might come up to reclassify or requalify what they can or cannot do.
Well, that's the thing. And again, you know, with these meetings I've been attending, is that we're trying to think of all the different types of workarounds that
Yeah.
people are going to come to us, because as soon as the law hits the books in Massachusetts, the first thing people do is they want to try to skirt it.
Yep.
And I see that every day, and this is a huge minefield if you don't get things buttoned up just right. So, you know, do you need minor site plan review for any of it? Do you want some? I think it's probably a wise idea. You don't know what kind of plans are coming up. You know, to be honest with you, I'm not real thrilled on the design of the one that went up on Summer Street. So I think it's probably a wise idea to have it. I don't know if it's going to be cleared by the AG's office. But typically they're generous in terms of the towns. So like I said, I'm on the fence. I really can't tell you which way to go,
Yeah.
you know?
Way it's written now, the one on the Summer Street would have to go in front of the group, the
No,
development review team? No,
no.
because this is
that the
only,
one with the pergola?
Yeah,
Bob?
because they're attaching it to a pre-existing accessory structure.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah. What is the address on that one? I don't know. I'm not familiar with it.
72, 74, something like that.
Okay.
You're exercising my memory, and it's
Sorry.
okay. I-
My memory could be wrong, but there was a definition I saw that to be considered attached, it needed to share 5 feet of wall space or something like
No.
that.
That
Oh,
doesn't
no.
exist anywhere. That's the problem I've always had, is that when a building is attached, the building codes don't show it and the zoning code doesn't show it in terms of what considers and what meets the definition of attached.
Find it. I think it's in a state definition somewhere that I saw.
And
But-
if it's not in the building code and not in the zoning code, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
It was in one of these new codes that I got.
crazy. Mm.
All right. So, moving on, under accessory dwelling unit, we simplified the decision at the definition of accessory dwelling. So now it no longer says anything about, if you remember the last version said, this is what the building permit requirements are versus site plan approval. So it deleted all that.
Just scroll down a little.
Oh.
On the screen.
Yep.
Sorry.
I'm looking
just
at
following that one.
my written version in my lap instead of that version. So you can see that I deleted the various types of options for what the accessory dwelling looks like. So it pretty much runs the gamut. So then it talks about the following conditions shall apply. So the first one was just deleted in its entirety because this is prohibited by the regulation. We cannot mandate owner occupancy. So then I renumber the bullets after that. So the first one here, there's only one accessory dwelling unit on a lot. The regulation does allow us to allow more than one accessory dwellings on a lot by special permit. But I didn't think that that was something that you folks would go for. But if I'm wrong, please speak up.
Does anyone feel differently about this?
I just have a quick question, and I might be a little confused here. So when you're talking about not more than one accessory dwelling unit on a lot, so if somebody builds an accessory dwelling unit, the example you gave earlier of a garage with, you know, a bedroom, say, above it, right? And then they want to add on to that later, isn't that two? Because they already built one?
Yeah, so if they have, under that scenario, they have a 2-car garage with an accessory dwelling above. So this would allow you to build an entirely new apartment. So instead of having one accessory dwelling, you have two. So you'd have 2 apartments. But that second one would only be allowed by special permit. So you get one accessory dwelling by right, and then you get a second one by special permit.
The other thing that, again, has come up in these inspectors meetings is that, you know, we have a whole pile of duplexes out there already. All right. Those are classified as single-family homes. Those are not 2-family homes under the building code. So here we go. You have a pair of duplexes on a single lot. You can put 2 accessory dwelling units on it.
Question at the meeting I went to with the state, because a lot of like towns, you know, the duplexes are probably owned by one person and rented out. But sometimes, like in our town, they sell both sides. So I was at the state meeting and I said, what happens when you have a duplex? You only allow one ADU per lot. Then what happens? And the person from the state said, I don't know, we haven't thought about that yet. Probably first come, first serve. So the first person who decides to do it is the one that gets to do it.
Well, that's
But-
why in the definition, you can see I made sure to specify it's a detached single-family dwelling.
Mm,
So if all we said was on the same lot as a single-family dwelling, then that would enable them to be built in the duplex scenario or the townhouse scenario. So this definition does not allow that to happen. So it can only be built if it's associated with a detached single-family dwelling.
it seems like that's the way it should be, and that's the way the state originally seemed to roll it out as, because it was one per lot on a single family residential neighborhood area, you know? Anywhere a single family is allowed, they can do one per lot. So I think if it's a duplex or multifamily, it just throws another wrench into it.
Okay, so then the new letter B, that's the same as it was last time when we went over this bylaw. I didn't make any changes there. New letter C, an accessory dwelling unit shall adhere to the minimum dimensional requirements set forth in zoning bylaw, etc. Bob, that's for you. That's in response to a comment that you made. Gave me in an email, I think in November, December. And then I added, because I wanted to keep all the dimensions together, the second sentence that says a detached accessory dwelling shall be located to the rear or side of the principal dwelling and shall be set back a minimum of 10 feet from other buildings on the lot. So this is the same as it was last month. However, Amy had made a comment about changing it to 20 feet. Then Bob had made a comment saying, no, it should be 10 feet. We discussed it today and the consensus we came to is 10 feet.
Well, 10 feet is what we have in the books currently for accessory structures. I just thought that it's wise to keep it consistent. One of the questions in my response earlier today was about this particular section. As written, I think it's fine. But the other thing to remember is that all other setbacks need to be adhered to, including distances to wells, septic systems, and reserved septic areas on a lot. Okay, so if you're tying into a septic system, you know, the septic system is required to be a certain distance away from the building. And the reserved septic areas are the same thing. All right, so it's in also wells. Okay, so you know, you have to be a certain distance away from the house. Wells need to be a certain distance away from each other. Okay, so I think it's important to include that. One of the things, just as a heads up for you folks, through our electronic permitting system, we're working on having a separate, distinct building permit for any accessory dwelling unit in town. So just like if you got onto our system and says I'm building a house, they check on new house and all the requirements come up for that. On this particular one, if you check on I'm building an ADU, whether it's attached to an existing home or a detached, you know, plunk and place as I call it, that's going to require a building permit, and it's going to have its own separate section of requirements, because it's not just the zoning code we have to adhere to, it's the building code. So just making you aware of that, we are going to have our own separate category, because the state also requires us to record and report how many were permitted, how many were built, how many were issued certificates of occupancy. I don't know what they're going to do with the reports, but you know, it's one of those things that Boston is telling us we got to do it. So, and that should be coming up. I'm hoping to have that up and running probably by the beginning of February. All right.
They send you a reporting system that you have to use?
Well, they are going to be supposedly in their bylaw that they're writing up is that they're going to send us the report that they want us to fill out.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm assuming they're gonna send us some sort of a blank to fill out and send back to them. I don't know if it's gonna be paper or electronic. Knowing that these people, they don't have any idea of what they're doing. I mean, I'm honestly telling you this.
Right,
I have very, very little faith in the stuff coming out of Boston because nobody has thought it through.
right.
And it's up to us to figure it out, and I think that's unfair.
And the thing that makes it hard, and even they were saying, is this is a blanket for every single town and city in the state. And we're all different. Every single, like, we're not the same as Somerville or Worcester. So it's like, it's very different for each town, but they're trying to make it a blanket statement on
One
how
of,
it should be done.
one of the attendees at this morning's meeting was one of the higher ups from Boston. They're pulling their hair out,
Oh, I'm sure.
absolutely pulling their hair out. And like you said, Amy, this goes for every town from Boston to East Hampton,
Right,
where they may have one every 10 years, and this one size fits all. You got to get
right.
creative to make it work.
Now we can limit like short-term rentals. Like, do you feel from the 5 people that came to you that it's going to be an issue in Northborough or not really? Like, I think if people want it for their, grandkids or their kids, it's fine. But if like people are going to start coming in and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, because of the spirit of the ADU law, we can't control who goes in there in
Yep.
terms of relatives, non-relatives, fortunately, Northborough is not a destination town for a lot of things. Again, 2 gentlemen from Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard were there today, and you know, they're pulling their hair out too because it's a destination town. Every lot on that island is going to have an ADU on it.
Right?
Okay, every one of them. They get $6,000 a week for a 2-bedroom.
Yep.
So there you go. I don't foresee that happening in town. I think in town it's probably going to be used more along the lines of an apartment, maybe a elderly couple with the family moving into the main house. It could be somebody who's building, hoping to have a Tufts veterinary student stay there, as a off-campus housing, if you will. I'm seeing more of that use on that side more so than, come rent this place for 3 weeks and go away. I'm not seeing that.
Okay.
All right, so there was a controversial sentence that I had last month that sparked some discussion having to do with the maximum height of 20 feet. Millie, I know that you were concerned about that.
Mm-hmm.
When the guidance came forth, I did delete that because they say any requirement concerning dimensional setbacks, lot size, lot coverage, open space, and the bulk and height of structures that are more restrictive than what is required for a single family cannot be considered. So I got rid of that 20-foot height requirement because it's 35 feet in the districts. So
Okay.
we'll just stick with that. So then the next one, Bob and also the guidance said, we have to be careful about what we're saying about these units. So essentially I deleted, Amy and I thought that if we deleted the shall and put should, it would make it more acceptable to the state. So letter D, the accessory dwelling unit should be designed so as to preserve the appearance of the existing single-family dwelling on the lot. So essentially what that's getting at is that if you're doing an attached accessory dwelling unit, it shouldn't look like a duplex. It should still look like a single-family home. And then it goes on to talk about the entrance and how that should look. So this would apply to pretty much any accessory dwelling, and however it's attached or detached. So the language is pretty much the same, except we change shall to should.
Okay.
So then the next one, this is specific to whether it's within or attached to a single family dwelling. So it doesn't apply to the other types of accessory dwelling units. So ones that are attached to a accessory structure or ones that are standalone, this doesn't apply. So it says the accessory dwelling shall maintain a separate entrance either directly from the outside or through an entry hall or corridor shared with the principal dwelling sufficient to meet the requirements of the state building code.
What,
And
what's that? Go ahead.
should state building code be capitalized or not capitalized? Because it's inconsistent in here.
I would probably, SBC, I would probably capitalize. I don't know, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. As long as you have chapter 780 CMR, you're all right.
All right, I don't know why I deleted something here. What happened?
Do Control Z.
Control Z?
Yep.
Oh, that didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to undo what I just did.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. The arrows are up there. There we go. So does anybody have any comments about that one?
Yeah, I just want to make a clarification on that. And I think it's pretty much there, but the idea behind an accessory dwelling unit is that to go from one dwelling unit to the other, you need to leave that dwelling unit completely.
Right.
Okay, so you either have to go outside and come around to the front, or if they talk about some sort of an entry hall, that entry hall is a neutral area. Okay, so that entry hall would have a door to the outside. You go into this entry hall or vestibule, and then you have a doorway that leads you into either the main part of the dwelling or another separate door that leads you into the ADU. Okay, and that central hallway has to be fire protected. Okay, so the idea behind an ADU is that you've got to leave one to go to the other. A lot of in-law apartments and all that stuff built in the 60s and 70s, you would have a doorway from one living area, and it's an interior doorway, and it goes into another section of the building which has a kitchen, a bathroom, a bedroom, and a living room. Okay, that's an addition. That's not an accessory dwelling unit. Okay, because it's still you got a familial tie in that, and you have just a common doorway. Okay, again, the ADU and the primary residence are two separate entities. Okay.
Okay. All right, so this language works for you, Bob?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. As long as we get 780 CMR in there, that's good, because that's basically a definition and an idea that comes out of the building code, not so much the zoning code.
So then letter F, once again, I'm softening this from what I had last time. So instead of saying shall, I'm saying should. So this is something that the design review team can encourage. And also we're encouraging in the regulations, but we're not mandating.
One of the things, just as information, detached ADU should not be taller than the principal dwelling. I think that's appropriate. One of the things to remember is that in our current zoning bylaws, if you do propose to build an accessory structure, okay, and an ADU is an accessory structure, okay, that is 2 stories, you need a special permit by the ZBA. Okay, so if they want to do a two-story type accessory dwelling unit, they still have to go to the ZBA for that.
So question for you, Bob.
Mhm.
And I have an example of this in my neighborhood.
Yep,
They have a ranch,
yep,
single-story ranch.
yep,
Then they built a two-car garage
yep.
with an accessory dwelling above. So now
Mhm.
they've got a single-story ranch and they got a two-story accessory structure. Are you saying that that is required to go to the ZBA?
No, because in what you're describing, the new garage is attached.
No, it's not attached,
Oh,
it's
it's
detached.
detached?
Yeah,
Yeah, and in our case in Northborough, they'd have to go to the ZBA for a special permit.
okay, and where is that requirement?
Oh, give me a moment. Talk
Because
amongst yourselves.
maybe I should make the marginal reference here
Yeah,
to that section.
yeah, hang on.
Mm-hmm.
It might be in. I'm gonna have to look it up and get back to you.
Okay, I'm gonna put that in red
Yeah,
just to remind myself
yeah,
that you and I need to
yeah.
kibbutz on that.
Uses.
And then the next one is no change.
Right.
So does anybody have any suggested modifications to that bylaw?
Questions from the board?
So I do have a question on the off-street parking space. How do you provide off-street parking in a residential or in this setting?
So that would just be in the driveway. So, you know, typically the driveway would be wide enough to accommodate that one additional parking space. So you have two parking spaces for a single family home.
Hmm,
And then you would just have to accommodate one additional parking space. So probably that would be behind the other two cars.
Okay,
Or
all right.
it could be in the garage. So if you have a two-car garage, then that's the two spaces for the single-family home. And then you just have the car parked outside of the garage in the driveway.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be an additional parking, specific designated parking space.
No, it would
Okay,
just have to be able to be accommodated within the existing driveway.
okay. Oh, I see. Yeah, okay.
All right, so then the next article.
Found
we
it.
talked about- Oh, sorry, somebody else?
Yeah, I found it, Lori.
Oh, okay, where?
Let me read it to you because it may or may not count. In the RC, GR, MSR, and DN districts. Okay, so not residence A, residence B. But in the RC, GR, MSR, and downtown neighborhood districts. For accessory structures commonly called storage sheds, greenhouses, cabanas, pool equipment sheds, gazebos, and similar uses. I don't think this is a similar use. The side setbacks, about 120 square feet and 1 story in height. Okay, so while we do have a 1 versus 2 story restriction, this particular section does not talk about accessory dwelling units, but it does talk about accessory structures.
What page are you on?
7-55. About a quarter of the way down,
Yeah, I see it.
uh, parenthesis, small e. First of all, it's only in the more congested districts.
Right.
And it talks about, basically utility type accessory structures. So sheds, greenhouses, cabanas, pool equipment sheds, gazebos, doesn't talk about garages.
I don't think it would apply because it also says that the structure can't exceed 120 square feet in area. And here we're saying it's half the size of the principal structure or 900 square feet.
Sounds
So,
like a plan. All
yeah.
right. All right. Thanks.
So then, under the supplemental regulations, so this is the regularity factor we talked about last time. I just changed the wording a little bit. No lot for building purposes shall be created, which is substantially irregular in shape. So I got rid of the laid out. I think that was a question that somebody had. So I just clarified that language a little bit.
Lori, I've got one question,
Sure.
and this is on an enforcement side. We have a lot of very irregularly shaped lots here in town. Where there's a big pile of land up on the back. Typically, it's a 50-foot frontage for the street.
Yep.
If somebody were to attempt to take one of those pieces of property and split it, okay, the quote donor lot and the newly created lot would have to adhere to this formula.
Yeah, pretty much. So there is a special exception for a reduced frontage lot.
Yeah.
So you'll see that the mathematical equation is different
Okay.
for a reduced frontage lot, because of course the understanding is that they're larger in area and they're not going to have the same configuration as a standard lot. But yeah, it should comply. So what we're trying to do is create more rectangular looking lots.
Right.
And there is also an exception for very large parcels. So here it says the formula may be applied only to that portion of the lot that conforms to the minimum dimensional requirements of the bylaw, frontage and area, thus allowing greater irregularity on large parcels where that irregularity is not used to meet minimum requirements. So you could have, a 10-acre lot that's super funky looking, but you would have to demonstrate that the minimum, so if it's in the 80,000 square foot district, that 80,000 square feet has to be compliant with that formula. So it would have to be somewhat rectangular.
Okay.
Is there any way, Lori, that you can add some wording to speak to what Bob just said, that like when you do subdivide the lot, that the original one also has to comply to this? Just to like make that clear, that
Yeah,
the one created and the one left behind, neither can be funky.
Yeah, what we have to do is, should this pass, we have to update our subdivision rules and regs to reflect this information, so we can provide more clarity as well in our subdivision regs to explain how they have to demonstrate that. So it'd really be in our A&R regs, but also, the subdivision. as well.
And is this basically to prevent irregular lots from becoming more irregular lots?
Not necessarily. I had a meeting with somebody recently where they had a very, very large parcel of land, and they were interested in subdividing it so that they could maximize the number of lots. So this kind of prevents one from doing that. So the resulting lots were super ridiculous, crazy looking. So what this would do is it may say, okay, well, instead of 6 lots, you're going to get 5 lots, but they're going to be better looking lots that make more sense.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that, you're going to know where you can put your swing set in your swimming pool. You're not going to have to do some weird jog behind your neighbor's house in order to do that. So I think the resulting quality of the lots will be better. All right. So anybody else have anything else on this one? Okay, and then in the next one, once again, the red, you've already seen this one before. But Bob gave me some follow-up comments that I wanted to make sure that I addressed. So I just clarified. So each lot would be served by public water and sewer. So this would be the merger of lots under common ownership. And the reason for that is, of course, we have parts of town that are not served by sewer. And then, of course, we have areas of town that are within the aquifer protection overlay, groundwater protection overlay. So it would make sense that if you are, let's pretend that we're in our 80,000 square foot district. But maybe we have 2 lots that are next to each other that are only 10,000 square feet. If they are served by public and water and sewer, then you'd be able to build 2 houses on those 10,000 square foot lots. But if you're not, so say you're in your 80,000 square foot district where there is no public water and sewer services, then you would not be able to build 2 houses. You would only be able to build 1.
Do you know how many lots are smaller than the 80,000 square feet in that area?
In the 80,000 square foot district?
Yeah.
I would have to look.
I'm just
I
wondering,
can do
is
that
it like,
for
is it
next
5 or
meeting.
could it be hundreds?
Why, what are you thinking, Anthony?
Most
Just
of the ones on
impact?
Main Street aren't.
Right, I just don't know how applicable, I mean, how much it's gonna matter. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know how many lots are up there less than 2 acres. But just curious.
Part
Well,
of the,
this would say that pretty much you're only able to do it in areas of town that have water and sewer service.
You know,
Otherwise, they merge like they do today.
gotcha.
one of the reasons why I'm saying we need to think about this is because if you've got one of those 5,000 square foot lots, or even a 10,000 square foot lot, again, if you have wetlands or any kind of a flood or a septic or a well, you need space to fit all of those things onto a small lot. And you're going to have, if you're working on a 5,000 square foot lot, you're not going to get all those items on there. So, you're going to need a bigger piece of land to be able to fit all those services.
But in the residential areas, our lot sizes are bigger than 5, correct?
Yeah, those are for, established lots, the smallest lot we offer is a 20,000 square foot lot.
Right.
And there's some like Main Street residential, but we have water and sewer along Main Street, so it's not an issue.
Right.
That's the thing. This whole issue about merger of lots under common ownership basically erases the merging of the lots that happened back in 1980, 81, something like that, or somewhere back there. If you had common ownership of a house with a lot on it, a lot with a house on it, and a small lot or a small piece of land that was not buildable, okay, by default, that property line got erased, okay? And that piece of land became part of the main property. This erases it, okay? And what they're trying to do is allow to have those pieces of property now come back on the market and be viable for building, but there are limitations. They're limiting you to how much heated floor area you have, leaded to single family dwelling, no less than 3 bedrooms, so you're going to need a 3-bedroom septic system, and not to be used as seasonal or short-term rental. Okay, so they're opening up these merged lots so that first-time home buyers or maybe low-income home buyers have an opportunity to build a new home. That's the reasoning behind it. This brought up a lot of attention at the meeting today, where if somebody has a merged lot and they want to open it up to have make it viable as a new building lot. We've been advised to ask for a complete title and deed chain of command and search in terms of who owned what and when, and have a land use attorney submit that to us, because it's bad enough that we had to deal with the confusion of merging these lots together. Now we have to deal with the idea that these lots were merged together, and now we're opening it back up. Okay, that's a huge amount of work that we shouldn't be doing. There should be a land use attorney to do that work as the applicant. So that's kind of the reasoning behind this whole thing. The state's really trying to open up opportunities for people to get land. To Anthony's point, I don't know how many lots in town this is affecting. I do know there are some smaller pockets of land off of Whitney. There's a little offshoot street off of Whitney that there's been a lot of activity where the owner wanted to sell the land and he couldn't sell it because it's not a buildable lot. Well, now it may be. So we'll see how that goes. But at this point, there's really no way to tell how many pieces of property are affected by that.
And this is something that the state is pushing through.
This is a state requirement.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is now a law.
Yeah.
So we have to figure out how to comply with this.
Right.
So this way we're putting some parameters on it. So if we didn't have it in our zoning book, then Bob would just have to, when he has somebody coming to apply for a building permit,
Yeah.
he would just have to automatically, as long as it had 10,000 square feet and 75 feet of frontage, he'd have to automatically allow a construction of a single family home on it. So this gives us a couple of caveats that says that it has to be on water and sewer, that they have to comply with our upland requirement. And so it gives us a little bit of protection. All right. And then the other one, I think we already discussed, or can't remember if we discussed it or not. But this was one thing that I noticed was missing. I think it was the intent to include it. It has to do with the whole land clearing and grading bylaw that we have. So of course, now we have the new stormwater management and land disturbance permit. But it doesn't make sense that they have to go to the planning board for land clearing and grading, and then also go to the Conservation Commission for a stormwater management and land disturbance permit, because they're looking at clearing and grading as part of that approval.
Makes sense. Any comments from that, from board members on that?
No.
All right, so that's pretty much it. We're going to design review this week to discuss the changes to the sign bylaw that were previously presented to you folks. So at the next meeting, we will have those for you to consider as well.
Okay. All right, so moving right along, that's great. Thanks for all the work on that. It seems like it's a lot in flight there, and appreciate all the time put into it.
Yeah.
Really tricky. Okay, next we have meeting minutes for approval. So we have 3 sets of minutes. Did everyone have a chance to read the minutes? We had 2 sets that had proposed amendments to it, and then also additionally, Michelle added the addresses of some of the people who commented during public comments, just to make it clear, you know, who's who was a part of public comments and to add the address. So that was the second set of amendments made to the minutes. So are there any, starting with November 19th, any further amendments to the minutes?
Not for me.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the November 19th minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, Anthony?
Aye.
Amy? Bill?
Aye.
Millie?
Aye.
And carries an aye. I think December 3rd was not amended. Is that, I think there are no amendments for December 3rd minutes, correct?
Did not see any. Nope.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept December 3rd minutes as submitted?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, Anthony?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Millie?
Aye.
And carries an aye. December 17th did have the amendments, including the addresses that I mentioned. Any further amendments to the December 17th minutes?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept the December 17th minutes as amended?
And so moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, Millie?
Aye.
Anthony?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
And carries an aye. Okay, great. So minutes are set. Any subcommittee updates? Bill, I saw there was a survey online. You probably have something from traffic regarding that. You getting some good
Yeah.
responses there?
Yeah, we already have, you know, we put out the survey yesterday. We already have 370 responses so far.
Wow.
So yeah, we were all really shocked that there was that large of a response, which is good. You know, we need the data, we need the information back on, you know, what people want to do in town when it comes to, you know, the traffic safety. So, so I encourage anyone who's out there, please fill it out. And yeah, other than that, it'll be up until February 7th, and then we'll start correlating the data.
Okay, so a whole nother month. That's great.
Yep.
All right. Any other subcommittee updates?
I just have something quick from the CBC. We had a couple of withdrawals for our applications and some changes. But really only the one change that we had was an additional funding for some of the White Cliffs activities.
Okay.
Yes, there's been quite a bit of buzz about White Cliffs. So there was an article in the Boston Globe on Sunday. So you folks can certainly look for that. There was also an article in the Worcester Telegram and Gazette, and some of the smaller papers picked it up as well. And I was contacted by a news agency via email.
Oh,
I haven't gotten back to them. That was tonight. So that'll be interesting to see what that's all about.
what's the big
And
headline?
Mass Development reached out to me as well, which that is the grant that I applied for, the underutilized properties grant in June, and was denied. But now they reached out to me because they want to talk about White Cliffs to see what we can do. So
What's the main headline in the papers? I missed it. Anything like,
I think it was something like the town purchased, this is just the crux of it, not word for word. The town purchased it 8 years ago and has done nothing, essentially.
Some of that really isn't fair because I think during COVID, there were like 3 or 4 years where nothing happened. And it wasn't because people didn't want to, it just, people said there were other priorities. So I don't know. Some of the article I felt was misleading.
Somebody sent me a Word version of the article because I don't have a subscription. So I'll send it to everybody. That's the Boston Globe one.
well, Lori, here's your chance to give your quote if they're contacting you.
Yes, I was quoted in the Boston Globe
Oh, you
article.
were? Okay,
They reached
great.
out to me over the weekend, so.
We'll have to read that. Okay. All right, any other subcommittee updates? Okay, next ZBA meeting is January 28th. Master plan is January 16th. If there's no further business, is there a motion to adjourn?
Oh,
Make
Bob
a
has-
motion to, oh, Bob, never mind.
Oh, Bob, you have something. I thought you were saying goodbye.
No, I'm not making a motion. I just want to thank everybody for putting up with my long-windedness tonight.
No, it was great. Good feedback. Good to have. Thanks for attending those meetings. I'm sure it's tough to sort it all out.
Yeah.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
So
So
moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, Millie?
Aye.
Anthony?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
And Carrie's an aye. Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.